Good morning. I'm State Senator Phil Boyle, represent the 4th Senate District, and joined here with some of my colleagues from the State Senate and Assemblyman Doug Smith, and a special guest, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney, who drove all the way up from Long Island for this press conference. We're here today because of a very important issue that just came to light last week. I, as an individual, have been working on DNA-related legislation on a federal and state level literally since 1988, since it just started in this country. We've seen many advances over the years, obviously, and one of the newer advances is called familial DNA searches. I'll explain it as best I can. I'm not a scientist, but basically, there's a crime scene, a defendant left their DNA, whether it's blood, semen, and the law enforcement, as anybody has seen a true crime show, does the DNA match, looks into the database that the state holds for anybody convicted of a crime, and there's not a direct link. So without familial DNA, that's the end of the story. What some of the lab technicians will sometimes find, however, that there's a partial match, that it's close to someone that's in the system, say their father, their uncle, their brother who is in jail for something else. Obviously, that greatly reduces the number of suspects from millions to maybe half a dozen to find out who committed a crime. And we're only talking about violent crimes here: murder, rape, kidnapping, terrorism. So New York State in 2017 became one of 11 states that allow this familial DNA searching, so to a great law enforcement tool for our prosecutors and our police. It was, the way it came into being was not through legislation, but through a decision made by the New York State Commission on Forensic Sciences and their DNA subcommittee. They said we're allowed to use DNA familial searches in New York State, and these are the guidelines, to be very careful that no one's civil liberties are being abused, on which you will follow do this familial search. I, at that time, in 2017, introduced legislation and passed it in the state Senate on a bipartisan basis to allow the familial searches in New York State. It never passed in the state assembly, but it passed overwhelmingly 49-11 in the state Senate. At that time, we thought it was a done deal. The commission had spoken, and familial searches would be allowed to be used by law enforcement officials in the state of New York. Fast forward to last week, when an appellate division case in New York City said that familial cases would not be allowed because the legislature never passed it into law, throwing it back into the hands of the state legislature. That is why I immediately introduced legislation with my sponsor in the Assembly, Assemblyman Doug Smith, to allow familial DNA searches. It's a vital tool, and I'm going to let District Attorney Tierney speak to a little bit about this, but I do want to point out that there's two ways that this can be fixed. One is New York State Attorney General Letitia James can appeal the case to the Court of Appeals. I pray that she does that and she wins, in which case familial DNA searches for law enforcement will be allowed again. But that could take a long time, and the Attorney General may decide not to do that. So the other option is to pass the legislation here again in the Senate and the Assembly. We have about 3 weeks left in the legislature. I cannot think of any more important issue that we should be working on to protect New Yorkers. I'm just going to remind everyone that this familial searches are only done for violent crimes: murder, rape, kidnapping, terrorism, and other violent crimes. No one's doing a familial DNA search for a jaywalker or a burglar or something like that. It's just really bad people that you want to get off the street. And I know the majorities in both of these houses talk a lot about protecting women. Well, the fact is the vast majority of the victims of these crimes are women. And I would point out also that in 2017, when my bill was passed, we had a lot of Democrat support, including Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who now serves as our majority leader of the state Senate. So I would respectfully ask that the majority leader bring this bill up for a vote. Doesn't even have to be my bill. Let a Democrat sponsor it. I'll be happy to co-sponsor, and I know Doug Smith feels the same way. No pride in authorship. Let's get it done. Let's pass legislation so the legislature is on record, making it legal to allow familial DNA. We already have the guidelines in place because the commission has already given the guidelines. They can just meet again and vote on them again.